And now, here is Coretta MacDonald, Member of Parliament and host of Advancing the Cause.
Well, good night to everyone. How are you people doing? Welcome to another episode of Advancing the Cause. Well, first of all, let me apologize for my co-host not being here. You see, tonight we were planning to have a very, very, very in-depth discussion with you. But then a couple of things happened, and we're going to have a shortened version of Advancing the Cause this evening. So my co-host would have decided, and that's MP Christopher Jones, he would have decided, look, next week we'll give them the full package. So that's Chris's reason for not being here. But we're going to talk tonight anyhow. Tonight on our highlights, we have more woes in the health system. 2 mothers have died within a day of each other, or 2 days of each other. One at the Lilliandale COVID hospital and one at the Georgetown Public Hospital. The young lady at the COVID hospital, pregnant mother, and her baby dies at the COVID hospital. She was inflicted with the COVID virus. And then we had a 19-year-old mother, she and both of her babies, she had twins, both of her babies died at the Georgetown Hospital. And of course, you'll hear the same old story, investigations are underway. But I can say to you, investigations are on the way will not bring these 3 individuals back. What is happening to our healthcare system? Why starting from 2015 May, we would have moved away from maternal deaths. Very rare we would have had one. Now, after August 2020, we have returned to that horror, losing our baby mothers when they go to the Georgetown Hospital. What is wrong with the healthcare system? Frank Anthony, talk to us. Talk to us. Mothers are grieving for their daughters. Husbands are grieving for their wives. Brothers and sisters are grieving for their sisters. Children are grieving for their mothers. Come on. We can't afford to have that happening in our system at this time. Fix it. Fix it. You know, we talk about all the monies that we're having, all the monies that we're having, but yet our citizens are dying as a result of neglect. Something is not right. Something is definitely not right. And then we had another issue this evening where a body was found under a bridge on Brick Dam, in between that optical services area and where we have the optical service building there that they perform services for us. Between there and just about 2 houses from there, a body was found on the bridge. A body of an unidentified man was found on the bridge. And we saw the police officers there, breaking that concrete bridge with a sledgehammer to recover that bloated body. We're yet to hear about the identity and the cause of death. But these things have returned. These instances, these issues, these incidents have returned because we have the pharaohs on the land. They have returned. And so Guyana will never, ever be the same as long as you have the PPP there. And then we recognize that the police have launched their Christmas policing plan, and we're hoping that that plan is going to be an effective plan that would work to safeguard citizens, innocent citizens, who would want to traverse the market areas and busy streets to conduct their daily businesses and to transact other businesses, whether they go to do shopping or they go to exchange foreign currencies or they go, whatever it is that they're going there for. We're hoping that that plan is going to be an effective one that would ensure the safety of our citizens. And then on another sad note, we saw a teacher collapsing, complaining of not feeling well at school, collapsing, and before she could reach to a medical institution, she died. To all of these persons, the two mothers and this teacher, and the body that was found there, to those grieving parents, we want to extend to you our sincerest sympathy, and we trust that you're going to find comfort in the pleasant memories you would have had of those persons who are now deceased. On that note, I want to take time off to say happy birthday to all of those persons who would have celebrated birthdays during the week, starting last Wednesday and coming all the way to this Wednesday. Happy birthday to you. May you live to see many, many more birthdays, and I trust that you are going to be fully fully enlightened. You're going to have that sense of discernment, and you're going to be bestowed with wisdom from the Almighty to ensure that you can go through this new chapter that you have entered. So happy birthday to you, and to all of those persons who are watching us. And so we have Anna Gordon, and we have Lynette Nelson, and we have Hazel and Desiree, and everybody else, Dawn, and everybody else who watching us here. Thanks for being here with us. Of course, we have our folks who are watching us from Switzerland. I must mention them every time because they're always there, and they are saying to me, Madam MP, make sure you mention us, make sure you call us out. So to our friends who are watching us from Switzerland, and to our friends in Barbados and Antigua and Grenada and St. Lucia and the Trinidad, good night to you. And of course, we have some friends who are watching us from the UK. Good, and well, of course, it's way out. It's somewhere about 11 o'clock for them. Good night to you anyhow. And we trust that our discussion here is going to be really, really a really, really good one. But I just want to zero in, since our time is short, of course, we have coming just after me, we have the leader of the opposition who's going to be hitting us off on this same link up on Politics 101. And that starts at 7. And of course, when the leader has an appointment, then you have to give way. And that's the reason for our shortened program this evening. But you're going to stay tuned so we can listen to the leader of the opposition, the Honorable Aubrey Norton, while he's going to come to talk to us on some other issues. But let's talk a little education. What's happening in the education system? We have recognized that education took a sudden nosedive. What we are seeing in terms of the results we would have received from CSEC and the CAPE and the grade 6 and so on, those were all in the making. They just did not happen. They were all in the making. So kudos to the coalition government. Kudos to the coalition government for all the policies that they would have put in place, and all the steps and the gaps that they would have closed up there to ensure that our students were given rounded attention. They were attended to, and they were well-rounded, so that going off to their exams, they were able to perform well. So it's not anything about what has happened now. It is what was there grounded. So kudos to the coalition. And of course, crime. Well, don't let me come off of education yet. In the education system, we have all sorts of things happening. And let me say this. We've got to fix it. We have seen the emergence of removing teachers from schools under the pretext that they are now being seconded. And so you have very junior teachers are being removed from their schools and are seconded to the departments of education all across this country. All across this country. And those junior teachers are coming there to give instructions to head teachers who would have been there for 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, all these years. Junior teachers. Some of those teachers are senior assistant masters and mistresses. Some are assistant masters and mistresses. I am wondering what kind of training we would have done with these people to bring them into the education sector to ensure that they are equipped enough to function in supervisory positions. Now, this is something that we will really, really have to look at. And you notice what is happening? If we look at what is happening, if we look at the trend and we look at the blend, we see predominantly one grouping of people, one grouping of people. And of course, yes, the family, friends, and the favorites. That's what we are seeing there. And because of that, we have seen this twist in the education system. We've also had complaints, and this is not only a complaint, but it has been investigated and it's factual, where we are recognizing everything is being done online. So you have lots of persons who are applying online to the Teaching Service Commission to become teachers. Quite a lot of those persons have their first degree. They have an associate degree. Some of them they've done the sciences, but they are not being employed. But we are seeing persons with just 5 and 8 and 6 CXC subjects. They are being employed ahead of these persons who have their first degrees. And upon investigation, I've been told that regions, especially regions 6 and region 3, the departments of education, they've been sending to the Teaching Service Commission names of persons, and they're asking that these persons be employed, that they be assigned letters because we have the vacancies here. Now, I don't know what system, and of course, I shouldn't say I don't know. I know that there's no system that is there to do check and balances to see whether this person is much more qualified than somebody who would have applied online. Nothing like that is being done. But what is being done is that they are given instructions at the Teaching Service Commission, where you have the secretary and clerks and so on functioning there. They're being sent names and saying, we have a vacancy here, fill it with this person, fill it with that person, fill it with the other person. That's not a fair system. And so we need to correct that. We need to correct that. You cannot open for applications online and then you have persons coming through the back door. Well, I shouldn't say that I'm surprised, because this is what happens. Corruption under the PPPC's under the PPPC's administration, corruption, more corruption, and this is what they entertain all the time. And we've got to look at that. If we want to have effective and functioning persons, then we've got to look at this. While I admire the fact that our young men and women who would have just left school and they're applying for jobs, we need to create more space for them, create jobs so that our young people can be employed. You know, and this is one of the things that we can never fault the coalition government for. Under the coalition government, lots and lots and lots of jobs were created for our young people. But with this present administration, you always see this distinct mark where a certain grouping of people are employed and a certain grouping of people can't get employment. I have tried making calls, and I made calls and made contact on several occasions to the Teaching Service Commission. And I'm saying, please, this person would have applied last year at this time. This is their reference number. This is their qualification, but yet they can't hear anything from the Teaching Service Commission. There's a vacancy at this school, and we recognize that somebody else is about to fill that vacancy. Why wasn't this person considered? Why wasn't a phone call made to that person? Come on, we can't talk about any one Guyana, and that's why I keep saying to us all the time. This whole issue about one Guyana and one Guyana and one Guyana, it's a farce. We don't have any one Guyana. I don't know where we're heading. I don't know where we are heading. And so we need to put the system in place. We need to put the systems in place. And it's disgusting. Very, very, very disgusting. When we look at crime, when we look at what's happening with the crime rate, it just keeps going all the time. Up, up, up all the time. And I'm wondering, what are our police officers doing? You know, just this week I saw an issue where a senior police officer went to a city school. He's in charge of the crimes unit. He went to a city school to deal with an issue involving 2 juveniles, you know? 2 juveniles. And there was no gun, they had no weapons there. Somebody tapped somebody, somebody hit somebody, and he presented himself there, and we got big, big things happening on the road, and he's not finding himself there. You try to understand sometimes what's happening with these people. They don't understand their roles. They don't know where they ought to function. And in the first place, I'm wondering, what was he doing in the school? And I'm wondering too whether the commissioner of police was aware that this officer was in that school, whether the commander was aware that this officer was in that school. As a matter of fact, two officers were there, a female and the male. Confusion. People don't understand what they do. And so I'm hoping that the Minister of Home Affairs, Mr. Ben, that you are going to put your foot on what's happening here. You need to call the Commissioner of Police to find out why those two officers were in that city school. You need to call them to find out what were they doing there. Or is it a case where because you got a friend here and you got a family there or you got a favorite, you can just barge into school compounds? We've got to put our hands on those things. Policemen and policewomen are not supposed to be in schools unless it's a case where the teachers or security guards at the schools cannot handle it, unless there's a man with a gun firing left, right, and center, or there's a man with a cutlass or something like that. But police ranks are not supposed to be in schools like that. You go there to intimidate people, that's what you were there for? You better watch your steps, please. And then we move to the whole issue of clean up the country and clean up the city. And I've seen, pictures here and pictures there and all this big hype. But let me remind us that cleaning up of our country and cleaning up of our city was from way back in Forbes Burnham time. Forbes Burnham had the prisoners coming out, those who had just about a short time and those who were in there for those who had lengthy sentences. They were used to clean not only the city, but to clean other communities in other villages. So this jump up thing that we're talking about, clean up and clean up and clean up, it's not a new thing. While we're happy that it's being done, I would be more happy if we have that kind of cleanup exercise being extended to South Rumvelt, West Rumvelt, East Le Penitence, Buxton, Pleasance, Melanie, Liverpool, Lancaster, Brighton, Evesham, Letterkenny, Bloomfield, Auckland, all those places. Extend it there. Don't just come with this sham about, clean up in the city. I'm talking about clean up in the city. Like I said, while we appreciate it, let me remind you again, former President David Granger, if you remember, after he was sworn in, or just after the elections, I think the declaration or something like that, I think it was. I need to be clear on that. He was out there after church that Sunday without bodyguards. He was out there with public spirited citizens cleaning the trenches and the gutters around. So don't let's make this a big thing as if Christopher Columbus just came in here. We had that happening. And it happens all the time. We follow every time what is happening here and what is happening there. Before I close, I want to say to us that mental illness is on the increase. Mental illness is on the increase. And when we are thinking that it's only affecting the little man and the little ordinary man out there, no. High society folks are suffering from mental illnesses. Maybe they're not aware of it or they're in denial. And so we have senior folks within the judicial system, senior folks within the police hierarchy, senior folks within our ministries. They too are suffering from mental illnesses. And I'm hoping that Dr. Frank Anthony is going to put his hand on that. And the minister, what's her name? Can't even remember her name. Posad. She too is going to look into that and have counselors come in and counsel those people. Because I just can't understand how a parent who holds a very high profile job in this country would want to behave the way that he behaved then. And I know when we're having fun, our time keeps going. But we're going to continue to advance the cause. But I need to let you know that the coalition government, we had better access to schooling. If you look around at what is happening to our children as we speak, they are on the road at all hours waiting for minibuses. But under the coalition government, we had the 5Bs initiative. And that worked so well. But you know what the PPP did? They came in here and they destroyed some of those buses. And those buses that have not been destroyed by them, they're using them for other purposes other than picking up and dropping off our school children. Y'all fix this thing, man. Fix it. When you go to school, you learn. You move from grades 1 and then you go to grades 2 and you go to grades 3 and until you get to grade 6 in the primary school. As a matter of fact, starting from the nursery school, we started year 1, and what we would have done in year 1, we continue to build when they get into year 2. So, but by the time they get to grade 1 in the primary school, they have a foundation. What this government does all the time is they break everything up. Break everything up. But we understand why they break everything up, because that's their way of stealing. That's their way of ciphering off the funding for them. So when they break down everything, they come and they start off again from fresh. I must remind you that our elections are untrained, like we heard that announcement with the local government elections, but the plan is to go with that bloated list. We are saying we need a clean voters list. A clean voters list. We don't want any bloated list with dead people and so on it. A clean voters list, and that will give us a true reflection of how our people are voting or how they will vote. Let's have a clean list. Finally, we have the whole issue of cost of living, and that trickles right down to what is happening to our public servants across this country. I'm not sure that we still have a minister of labor. And if we still do have one, he ought to be ashamed of himself. That man has said nothing with regards to representing the public servants in this country. He has not advocated for any kind of negotiations amongst the unions and the government, or from union and government. None whatsoever. No talk of collective bargaining. And these were the very people, when they were in opposition, were shouting collective bargaining, and we will give the teachers 50% increase and 20% and all the increases. And they've been in government since 2020, installed, and they have not seen it fit to start looking at collective bargaining to deal with public servants. And the cost of living every day is on the rise. 2 nights ago, I was in the market, and a cabbage this size, $2,500. You tell me how many parents can afford that. You tell me how many ordinary people on the streets can afford that. You tell me how many public servants can afford that. Viewers, governance is a big problem for the PPP. They don't understand what governance means. But next week, we are going to follow through with this same issue here, governance, APNU plus the AFC versus the PPPC. And we'll show you exactly what transpired during the years of the APNU AFC and what transpired 23 years while we had the PPPC, and in these 2 years while they are governing here. Do stay true to what we're going to be having later on, the leader of the opposition, Mr. Aubrey Norton, Member of Parliament, on Politics 101, where we'll have lots more information to give to you. Do take care. Remember, COVID is on the rise, so be careful, sanitize as often as possible, and wear your mask. We'll see you again with more of Advancing the Cause. Do take care, and I recognize Dr. Hines is right here with us. Good night to you, sir.
Good night to you, Coretta. I've seen you for a long time. You've been hiding from me.
Not true.
But I hear you loud and clear.
Just that you've not been looking in the right place. But I'll see you a little later. So take care, folks, and thank you for watching here with us.
And a very good evening to you, and welcome to Politics 101. David Hines here, taking over from Coretta McDonald, advancing cause. Coretta, of course, is the shadow spokesperson for the opposition on Labour. And we are, of course, at that critical juncture of our history where Labour comes into play. Wherever there is capital, wherever there is increase in revenue, of course, labor comes into play. Whatever the issue is, whether it's gender, whether it's race, whether it's social class, the worker, labor, important. My philosophy is that wealth is created primarily by labor. Some people hold the view that wealth is created by capital primarily. I am of that ideological viewpoint that wealth is created primarily by labor. Without labor, there can be no wealth. You know, I'm the old time. You know, when I was at university, with our guest who's coming on tonight, Aubrey Norton, we learned about the labor theory of wealth. You know, in those days, all right. Don't know that they teach those things today in the universities. Welcome to Politics 101. David Hines here. Tonight, the leader of the opposition, Aubrey Norton, has been with us for quite a while, but he's on tonight, and we're going to try to get as much out of him as we can. Please, of course, share the link and let everybody know that we are on Wednesday evening, midweek edition, and we are going to be talking to Mr. Norton about a number of issues, issues that have to do with his own tenure as leader of the opposition, leader of the People's National Congress, leader of APNU, and we are going to be talking also policy, very important. We're going to try to see if we can get him to weigh in on a number of topical issues. So welcome again to Politics 101. Please share the link and let everybody know that Politics 101 is on tonight. We weren't on last night. It's coming down to the end of the semester, and I'm pulled left, right, and center. Last night, I had to give a guest lecture at the University of Guyana, and so we missed last night. But we're on tonight. We're on tonight with the leader of the opposition. Let's not waste any time and bring Mr. Norton in right away. Good evening, Aubrey.
Good evening, David. And nice to be back with you. And good evening.
And how are you?
Listening, viewing audience. I'm fine. I'm fine. I had a full day, but I had a meeting today with pastors.
Well, it comes with a job.
Yeah, no, I'm not complaining.
Well, you know, I like to
informing.
Beautiful.
I'm not complaining. I'm informing. I had a good meeting today with pastors, Guyanese pastors in the diaspora and in Guyana.
Good. Let's start the ball rolling immediately. Last year at this time, you were wrapping up. You're making your case as to why you should become leader of the PNC. We remember very well because you're on regularly to this program. And so in that sense, we followed very closely your path. So it's almost a year since you have been elected. You were elected last year, December. It's gone up a year. It's a good time, I think, for us to reflection on what has transpired over the last year. Let me ask you this. You've been around politics for a long time. So when you assumed the leadership of the party, you were very starting as we did in those days as little boys. And in that sense, you grew up with the PNC, you grew up with politics, and you grew up with Guyana, independent Guyana, right, in that sense. What turned out to be predictable in the job as leader of the party, and what turned out to be not so predictable? after 1 year on the job?
Well, first of all, I took the job knowing that there were a number of challenges. First, I know I had to rebuild the party from the base, put party groups in place, put networks in place. That turned out to be good, not as uh, good as I expected, because you have high expectation, but we have been able to ensure that there are functioning party units in many areas in the country. For instance, when I became leader of the PNC, the East Bank did not have a functioning district. It now has a functioning district, and a lot of work is being done there. So I am both happy that we have been able to do a good bit of work in terms of reorganizing and putting leadership in place in various communities, but I felt more could be done. I think one of the things that I am not happy about is that I'm not able to do as much education and training in terms of leadership in the party. And it is something in my plan next year I intend to intensify. I mean, it is heavily dependent on financial resources, but it is also dependent on you having the time to do it. And I think I need to focus on allocating some more time so that we can do more education and training first at the leadership level, and then the wider political training that is necessary to ensure an efficient and effective party. Also, in terms of public relations, I think we have improved, but I'm focusing next year on ensuring we have a much better public relations program leading up to the next elections, because public relations are critical and they inform perception, etc. And therefore, I believe there is need to focus a lot on the question of public relations. I am indeed satisfied that we are clearly defining a vision for Guyana. One of the things I felt we need was to define a vision. While I haven't made a complete presentation yet on our vision, I have indicated, as a party, we have indicated that we intend to focus on a people-centered vision. The big problem we have in the society today is, one, the attempt domination and control by the People's Progressive Party. The other problem we have is that people's lives have gotten worse under the People's Progressive Party, even amidst oil wealth. And the party seems, that is the People's Progressive Party, seems to be only interested in getting their friends, their family, their favorites, the PPP elite rich, rather than ensuring the resources of the society go to the development of the quality of life of the people. I believe we have been able to put out there the need for a people-centered vision in which we put the people and the development of our human resources at the center of development and the use of our oil resources. For instance, we have advocated for a minimum livable wage, which will see our people, once it is given, get a better quality of life. And I've said on numerous occasions, a government led by the APNU, AFC, in future will be one in which the focus will be on our people and ensuring that they develop, ensuring there is access to resources. For instance, we believe it is wrong morally and in every sense for us to have the resources we have at our disposal and children are going to school hungry. Children cannot go to school because the parents don't have the finances for them to travel. We intend to focus on ensuring children can get hot meals at school, creating a network of school transportation so children can get to school. We believe that a lot of our school children drop out of school, and by the time they catch themselves, there is no avenue for them to go back to school. In that regard, we intend to develop a network of night schools that will allow people to work in the day and go to school and improve themselves. Anyone who understands development will know that the development of your human resource is probably the most critical area that you can put resources into. We exist in a society in which about 16,000 or more children do grade 6 exam, what we call in the old days common entrance. By the time you meet the form, only about 5,000 students are getting 5 subjects with math and English. What that means is the matriculation level is very low, and we have to focus our education system on ensuring our children matriculate. You cannot have a primary school system that isn't producing quality children by grade. That is what 3, what we would have called first standard. Now, one of the things we intend to do is refocus the attention of the school curriculum on ensuring that children, by the time they would have arrived at grade 3 or first standard, they should already know to read, write, reason, and comprehend. Now, those are critical if you're going to create the kind of human resource base you need for the development of a society that has oil and hopes to diversify. Your human resource capabilities are necessary. We have a situation here in Ghana where the government arbitrarily removes people from social assistance. Since we were out of government, more than 400 people in Linden have been removed from social assistance. We believe there is need for a comprehensive social services system with objective criteria for allocation of resources to people, so that you have a social network that protects people, and those people are protected from the arbitrary actions of politicians. So there are a number of things we need to do to ensure that our children are doing well, and by the time they move to secondary school, they are well equipped. I always recall while I was at the university, and I always felt it was nonsense, that the university had to be putting in place programs to teach English 101 at the time because the children coming with CXC weren't prepared. We don't need that in a system. We need a system that when a child leaves primary school, the child should be equipped that even if they would have fallen out of school, they can go back to school and they have the level of math, understanding of math, English, they can reason, they can comprehend. So if they need to return to school later, then they could. So we intend to focus in that direction, because the reality is your human resource is the basis of your development.
Thank you very much, Aubrey, for that opening statement. Some of you are indicating that the volume is a bit low. I hope it has improved. Mr. Operator, if you can pay attention to that. Please indicate, those of you in the audience, whether the volume has improved. Aubrey, I want to take you back to the question of vision, because I happen to believe that is most the question of vision.
Yeah.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, for the question of vision.
Yes, you raised the question of vision, and you could not be saying that the PNC did not have a vision before you took office. So you obviously are saying, right, you obviously are saying that we are at a particular juncture in our history that demands a vision or an adjustment to the old vision. Is that what you're saying?
Well, first of all, it's not only the PNC, it is the groups in the coalition. All of them would have had views on where Guyana should go. You have to interact and you have to understand And then you have to bring these ideas together. There was a vision document under David Granger, but years have passed, and so one has to now look back at that document. For instance, David Granger's perception that children must have access to and be able to go to school is something that I've been advocating in our present vision of where we need to go. Because as a leader, you have to analyze what occurred, what mistakes we have made, what strengths we have, and in developing your vision as is, you need to take all of those into consideration. Remember, David Granger did not have the opportunity to govern Guyana with oil. Some people would say why this wasn't done under David Granger. The context is totally different. David Granger did not have billions of dollars in oil resources to be able to put in many of the areas. And a lot of things the coalition did in those 5 years without oil, if one looks at them, one will see that if we have oil, we will do much better because there are now resources at our disposal. The significant difference between us and the People's Progressive Party is this view we have that the resources from oil must go to diversify the economy, develop infrastructure, but ensure that the people of Guyana are improving their quality of life. When you look at the PPP approach, you see infrastructure, but all of the works are directed to one set of people. And the PPP elite, etc., they are the ones that are benefiting. And then it is affected by high levels of corruption. Part of our vision has to be the development of anti-corruption laws to ensure that there is a minimization of corruption in Guyana. All who would have looked at the countries that found oil and they saw that there are high levels of corruption would see those countries tend to fail because the people didn't access the resources, and the oil resources didn't go to improving the lives of the people. And so the society, while it was having high economic growth as a result of oil, people's lives weren't improving. The recent report that showed that there is increased poverty in Guyana amidst the oil wealth is a clear indication that if we don't have a people-centered vision that allows us to develop policies and programs that will put resources in the hands of the people, then we'll be in trouble. And so we are redefining the vision in the context of oil and gas. The diversification has to be critical. I cannot see how we could think of a Guyana at this stage in which we do not put considerable resources into developing cheap electricity, so that cheap energy, so that manufacturing can take off, agro-processing can take off, because we need those areas to widen the base of the economy and to remove the vulnerabilities that come from an economy focusing on oil alone. And then agriculture. We need in this country, and this is part of the vision that we're advocating, each region should develop their agricultural capabilities to the point where they are self-sufficient. I remember sitting in a meeting with Ashney Singh, and he was going on about Region 6 having the comparative advantage in agriculture and Region 10 not having it. We will not operate like that. We believe that we have to expand agriculture. We believe that agriculture is critical, and therefore all 10 regions should be self-sufficient in agricultural development, and we'll advocate for that. Now, to realize that, we also need what we can call the interregional road links or highways. It must be easy for you to go from Georgetown to Madia, from Georgetown to the Rupununi. We have to link these regions by road, among others. It is known that using aircrafts are expensive. But if we open the regions, we do the intra-regional road links, you will be doing two things. You will be making access and transportation easy, and at the same time, you will be opening lands for development, housing, etc. I also believe in the context of climate change, we have got to begin to shift our population to the highlands. The government continues in the light of increased flooding to develop these housing schemes in areas that are prone to flooding, rather than shifting it to the highway, rather than shifting housing to between Linden and Mobura, and between Mobura and the Rupununi, just to name one area. On the Essequibo, there are highlands beyond Purika that we can shift housing to, etc. I think the government is narrow-minded, myopic, because they do not see the need to shift our population to highland in the light of climate change, in the light of us being a low-lying coastal country, and therefore we are vulnerable. And when I talk about vision, it is that I'm speaking about. Redefining development in Guyana so that we not only put in people in houses, but you moving them to the highlands so that you will reduce your costs, since you won't have to spend a lot on flooding and the post-flood repairs, etc. So one has to have a comprehensive approach to the development of Guyana. If I go to Berbice River like I did, the government comes out with a riverine grant because they have no plan. They are just responding to things. And when they come with a riverine cash grant, and I said to some people, look, the Demerara River runs through West Demerara and the East Demerara. So Georgetown is on the river. Is that riverine? How do you define riverine? The other big issue that the society has to address, that I think our vision will address, is the question of the development of a clear land use policy. You map the resources that you have, and then you develop policies to ensure that the land is used in the way. Recently, the government advertised that they were going to put houses by the Minis Hideout Junction. And then I asked at the press conference if this is not the same place that has a lot of bauxite deposits. After I saw the government say they aren't going ahead with it. But if they had a proper land use policy and they knew what is where and what we should be using lands for, then they would not have had to say we're going to put houses there and then recognize that you're going to put it on deposits of bauxite that you might need in the future. And so the government is visionless. They do not have a plan. If you do not have a plan, then you will end up in all directions. And that is why wherever the opposition goes, they follow and began to talk about cash grant, etc. But developing a country demands a vision, it demands a plan, and it demands the human resources to execute. It demands institutions that are independent. For instance, the PPP has politicized the Guyana Police Force to the point where some crimes are being dealt with and some aren't. I pointed out to the church group that I met today that one of the streets that should have the most, that does have the most cameras in the country, is Main Street or Avenue of the Republic. But yet a murder occurs there, and conveniently none of the cameras are working. So those by Bank of Guyana, those by the President House, those by the Prime Minister House, none of them could have picked up what happened. And that turned out to be not true, because when Bascom made his disclosure, he virtually said, look, we went to the cameras and we got certain information and they were prevented from going in that direction. Now, our vision is a vision in which the police force operates in an independent way. They are given the resources to develop and solve crime. And therefore, we have institutions that will transcend the politics of Guyana and begin to develop independent institutions that can serve the state and transcend partisan political politics. And I think that is necessary in any vision that we outline. So it's not that there wasn't a vision, but we have to redefine the vision in the present context to achieve efficacy.
Thank you very much there, Aubrey, and laying out a vision as to where his party and coalition see Guyana going in the context of our new oil regime. Aubrey, let's be real here. A lot of what you've pointed out there really points to what you do when you get into government and what you would fight for while you are not in government. The fact of the matter is that you are in opposition, your coalition is in opposition. The government may be visionless, it's governing, it may be governing badly, but it's governing. And what a number of people want to know, it is what is done, first of all, so you is discrimination that is bent on flouting of law.
It freeze just now, so I didn't hear anything you said. It was
It
frozen.
froze just now, right?
I didn't hear
Right. I'm asking, is your vision from an opposition standpoint of how you confront, how you deal with a rampant government? How is the opposition, first of all, going to contain the government, prevent it from continuing its rampage? What is your vision of the role of the opposition in this new dispensation under this new government?
The role of the opposition is clear. We have to improve our scrutiny of government expenditure and expose them. I've always argued that the function of an opposition is to educate, expose, and agitate. Now, as you agitate, you have to continuously build your support base and move into communities, educate them, and prepare them to take on the government in a legal fashion. Now, for instance, we have been focusing on a clean voters list. We have been having weekly pickets. We have been having certain exercise. Another one will come on shortly where we draw attention to this whole question of the clean voters list. Then you have to mobilize civil society. You have to mobilize civil society. We're in the process of mobilizing civil society. Today, I met with the church. We outline our position to them. We outline our vision, but we also said to them that the good book says you should stand for justice, and therefore we expect to hear you when injustices are occurring. And there are many. So we have to mobilize civil society, the trade union movement, which they are destroying, the church, all civil society. And we're involved in a process of meeting out to the various civil society groups so we can talk to them and bring them on board. Once we do that, we continue to be in the marketplace everywhere and mobilizing people so that when we need to take political action, we can take the political action. But we also must recognize the context in which we have to take the PPP on. You're not taking the PPP on as you did in 2015. You're taking them on in 2022 when they have a lot of resources at their disposal. I give you a practical example. You mobilize people and you say, oh, we do X, Y, and Z. And some of them say, no, we get in the government $40,000. And therefore we support, but we don't want to come in front. So you have to organize what you're organizing, recognizing that the government has a lot of resources. They are bribing people left, right, and center. And it is in that kind of context that you have to do your organization and improve the consciousness of the people to the point where they are going to be with you, taking on the government in the various forms you decide to take the government on. For instance, I believe the weekly protests for a clean voters list is impacted. And I think we will see the results of its impact as we go along, because we are going to continue the fight for a clean voters list, because justice is on our side, logic is on our side, and common sense.
Logic and common sense on our side. Leader of the People's National Congress, the APNU, and the leader of the opposition, Aubrey Norton, here tonight, in some regards reporting to us, in another sense, fielding questions from us. Mr. Norton, elections are coming up in Dominica. A snap election was called there in Dominica, to be held on December 6th. The option in Dominica is boycotting those elections. The opposition party has said that the voters' list is flawed and they will not contest on a flawed voters' list. In March, we have local government elections coming up. Your party, your coalition, the APN, has not said yet definitively whether it will contest those elections with a flawed voters list. Your partner in the coalition, the AFC, has already come out and said it will not contest under that flawed voters list. What will keep your party and your coalition, the APNU, from taking a definitive position on participation in those elections?
First of all, one has to have context here. One has to have context here. If the opposition in Dominica doesn't participate, what you will have is a kind of a moral impact, because it's a democratic society in which people worry if democracy is not prevailing. And so those who govern in Dominica and the people of Dominica will operate in a particular way that a democratic society operates. We recall years ago, Jamaica, there was a boycott and the government took all the seats. But
1983.
It ran into serious problems because there were no opposition and people felt it was not a democratic society, and therefore they had to hurtle to elections to solve the problem. Now we come to Guyana. Guyana is not a democratic society. Guyana is a society in which people with a dictatorial, authoritarian mentality is running. Now, if in Guyana we allow the PPP to take over Georgetown, Linden, New Amsterdam, they will suffer from no moral compunction. They will go on like if nothing has happened and will dominate and control all aspects of life. In making a decision, we have to focus on ensuring that the PPP does not control and dominate our strongholds. And whatever we need to to achieve that, we will do it. That does not mean we will stop our focus on getting a clean voters list for the elections in 2024 or 2025 when it occurs. We have to continue the struggle for that clean voters list, but at the same time, we have to protect our constituencies and ensure that the PPP does not get control of them. So the two contexts are different. It doesn't follow we might not run as APNU. We might say to independent groups, run, and we support them. That might very well be it. But the point is, we cannot at this stage afford to allow the People's Progressive Party, which does not subscribe to the democracy, which will have no moral compunction, who will not care. They will just proceed and dominate and do what they want to do. And so we have to take those variables, because some of the people who are saying don't go into the election are the same people that will turn around and say, you meant to take over all these strongholds. Now, as the leader of the party, I have to make sensible decisions. I cannot operate based on emotions, that if you go in the elections, it's a contradiction. The People's Progressive Party in this country complained and claimed there were rigged elections for years. But in every one of those elections, they participated to ensure that they stay in charge of their strongholds and their support base. We have to make sensible decisions. And all I would say to you is this. As it relates to the local government election, one, we don't intend to give up our strongholds. Two, we will determine how we will do it, if it is by groups or by APNU, AFC participation. And three, we will continue the wider struggle for a clean voters list. And we do believe we are making progress, though I don't want to see here why I believe we are making progress on this question of a clean voters list.
Based on what you've said here, it seems as though you've not arrived at a definitive position, but you are leaning towards some form of participation. Am I correct?
Some form of
participation in the election.
I would say to you, one decision has been made, that we will not leave our strongholds open for the People's Progressive Party to take over. In the last local government election, we lost Fowles Buxton, in which Buxton is key. The People's Progressive Party are the winners there. And you know what they do? They dominate the council. They use the overseer to do everything against the APNU in that area. You imagine if we allow them to be in charge of Linden, to be in charge of New Amsterdam, etc., where we will end up. I am a practical politician. I believe that a politician will always be criticized. But I'm saying to you, having analyzed the situation and look at the nuances and the complexities, I believe it is most important for us as a political movement to ensure we maintain control of our strongholds and consolidate them and use it as a mechanism to prepare to move forward.
Aubrey Norton there stating his position, his party's position on the upcoming local government elections. Not a straightforward position. It's not an easy decision to make. It's about balancing. Mr. Norton, of course, has said one thing is certain, is that they're not going to allow the PPP to take over the stronghold. What method is used? You heard him say, or did not say exactly what method would be used. Aubrey, I want to take your attention to
Before you go,
another development.
but before you go, remember it doesn't have to be one or the other. It could also be a situation where you decide that in some areas it is better for groups to go, and in other areas it is better for the APNU to go. One has to analyze the situation and based on the practical situation on the ground, make the decision. It is for these reasons that we are given a brain so that we think through the complexities and arrive at decisions. Sorry.
Have you been coordinated? Have you been coordinated with the other opposition? The AFC has said definitively that they would not participate after courts kind of wavering as to what to do. The WPA has not said anything yet. Have you been consulting or coordinating with the opposition on a common approach to these elections?
Well, first of all, we were seeking to do that, and you were part of that process before you left when we were meeting the AFC, the APNU, WPA, everybody were meeting the AFC. We never got a definitive position. There's now a definitive position. Beginning Monday, a new set of consultations will be open with the members of the APNU, including the WPA. I think a meeting is scheduled for Monday sometime. We'll meet out to the others and we will coordinate our activities with the members of the coalition.
News making here yes. News making here tonight, the leader of the opposition announcing that a new round of opposition engagement begin on Monday with the APNU, the WPA, and perhaps the AFC. We look forward to hearing or outcome of those consultations. But it's always good to know that the opposition, even when they disagree, at least they're meeting and engaging these issues. I take you to another worrisome issue, a worrisome development for the opposition. And that is the PNC, the PPP's insistence on going into the PNC/opposition strongholds and giving out gifts. It seems to be a concerted effort on their part to get in the opposition's head. I noticed at the public meeting in Mocha recently that you addressed that subject, and the manner in which you address it seems that you have been thinking about the consequences of those visits and what they can do on the part of the people. Elaborate for us.
I didn't get the question clear because it was muffled. But if you can repeat concisely the question.
Yes. I'm talking about the PPP's visit to your support communities in your support base and the insistence on going there and sharing things out and circulating pictures with people, giving them a positive response. Is that getting into the opposition head? Do you still think that it's something that should be left? I made reference without any response from the opposition. I made reference to your comment at the mock meeting and the subsequent development in Belgium when a government is there. I'm asking you to elaborate.
Well, first of all, we never left it to the PPP. One has to analyze what the PPP is. As the PPP recognize that resources aren't getting to poor people even in its stronghold, they have decided that they have to go to our strongholds. Let us recall this is not new. The only difference is that they are advertising it and they have more money to give out. But the PPP, ever since we were in opposition from 1992, they were always in our strongholds trying to bribe people and to get them on their side. And they have failed. Now, the PPP at present is going into our strongholds. They are throwing money around. They are bribing people. We are speaking to our people and educating them to understand that the PPP does not have your interest at heart. What they're trying to do is to bribe you, to send you messages that the AP and UAFC would have done nothing for you, with the aim of getting support. So we are countering the narratives. We have been on the ground in all of these communities, though we do not have the press on our side on many of these visits. But I'm saying to you, we're on the ground. We are in contact with our people. We are working with them. And we believe that our people understand the discrimination. Of course, there will always be a few who opt for filthy lucre. You're not going to get rid of that. In slavery, it existed. In the colonial struggle, anti-colonial struggle, it existed. It exists all the time. Now, what the PPP is doing is, in a lot of these communities, you will see the people that they use to achieve their objective. Either fugitives from justice in the US, people who are linked to illegal drugs and illegality, and they are using many of them in Buxton, in Linden, to distribute resources with the hope that they will succeed. I'm convinced that the work that is being done on the ground will counter that, and at the end of the day, we will maintain our strongholds and move forward. Now, we have been doing work in some PPP stronghold. In fact, when we went into on the quarantine, Bushlot, they went immediately after. They instill fear in people. I remember when I went to Little Africa, one of the first persons I met was a PPP Indo-Guyanese activist who very casually shook my hands, but immediately after I told he was under pressure because the PPP went on. Now, while you do work in the Indo-Guyanese community, and I'm telling you now something that happened day before yesterday, where a person that supports the AP and UAFC said to us, look, I will do work quietly, I will support you, but the minute you come out, what you find happening is the PPP activists or the PPP people who live on the left of you and the right of you start to complain against you, and the police is always harassing you. So they prefer to do what they're doing quietly rather than face the brunt of the PPP domination and control. So I am not worried about our strongholds. I believe once we do the work on the ground, we organize ourselves, we are going to succeed.
What happened at Belladrum? Was that a mishap, or is it part of a new approach that we would see from your activists on the ground to counter what the PP is brazenly trying to do?
What I would say about Belladrum is this. I don't know why people are making a lot of noise about what happened at Belladrum. In essence, look, there are some things the PPP been doing that we will put a stop to. One, the PPP went into Linden and removed the persons running the co-op society and imposed an interim management committee inclusive of a PPP activist who is accused of widespread corruption in the very cooperative society. At Melanie de Machana, they are taking a group with the hope of taking over the Vijay Strip Co-op. On the Essequibo coast, they did the same thing. We have to confront them. In Mocha, we went in and I spoke with the people there. I saw the minister saying that I'm supporting squatters. I don't know if you forget that Jack Leo told people to squat and don't worry with the government. But I want to say this. Let's look at Eccles, at Providence. What is the issue here? You're building a road. And as you build this road, you started from Mandela Avenue. It's going. On both sides of that road, while you're going to Mandela Avenue, from Mandela Avenue, heading to Mocha, PPP persons have lands and business no more than 10 feet away from the road. But when you arrive at Mocha, where the people are not in the part of the road, you are saying to them they have to move. And they occupy these lands for years. That to me is blatant discrimination. And I repeat it, they should not move. If you're saying you need 2,500 feet away from the road, it must be for right down the road at all points. You cannot give land to people close to the road of one ethnic group. And then when you meet Mocha, where there is the African Guyanese community, you suddenly declare the road done pass, you know. This road has already passed through. The people you have on the side, they must go, or you are going to bulldoze them. I have to stand up for those people because it's wrong. And then he tried to suggest that I am telling people to squat. I've said to people, the road, the lands on the inside of Mocha are your ancestral lands. The government cannot come now and tell you that you must move and you're in the path of this 2,500 feet or how many feet you are talking about. And so I've said to those persons, these are your lands. You do not squat on your own land because it is ancestral lands. And I've said to the people of Mocha, you have a right to occupy those lands. Let us look at what happened. You now go to charity. You now go to charity where you would win. And you say, we are going to regularize. We are going to regularize the squatters here. You go to Pigeon Island, where again it is the PPP stronghold. We're going to regularize you. We're going to put road, water, electricity. But when you come to the people of Mocha, they must move, or else you will bulldoze them. How more discriminatory you can get. And so we are going around sensitizing our people that we need to stand up. And there is no way that the government should be allowed to go into Belladrum, bypass the Community Development Council, bypass the NDC, take over that building and give it to who they want to give it because they think they are in support of them. We cannot tolerate that. And the member of parliament was absolutely right to go out there, represent our people, and to tell that minister she was out of place and she can go where she would have come from. Remember, Barra Jack, they will run around this country telling people, chase APNU, AFC people out of village. He had the audacity to say, chase Granger. I'm saying to you, we are seeing a situation where there is rampant, brazen, barefaced discrimination, and our task is to confront it. All the evidence leads to the fact that the PPP is a racist regime, and they don't like you to say it, but it is the truth, and I will continue to say it. And I'm not only saying it, I continuously give them evidence of their behavior.
And that was where I was going next, because not since Forbes Burnham as a PNC leader been so very clear on the question of racial discrimination. I guess because of the nature of the mass party and electoral party, it is always difficult to speak forthright on the question of racial discrimination and ethnic discrimination. And you have gone further than any leader since Forbes Burnham on this question. But you explained there that the development and the mode of governance of the people demands that kind of response. Aubrey Norton, look, we have had, go ahead. You wanted to add something, I imagine.
I wanted to say to
No?
you,
Yeah.
I wanted to say to you this. I have said very clear in this society that all ethnic groups have a place and must benefit. I told the religious people that I met today that the crux of the problem in Guyana is the allocation of resources. If the state continues to allocate resources in a way that discriminates against us, I have to speak out. That does not mean I am against Indo-Guyanese. What it means is that I believe Indo-Guyanese have the right to resources, but just as well, indigenous Guyanese have a right to resources as well as African Guyanese. I am prepared to campaign on a slogan which says essentially, we need one people, one nation, but with shared prosperity. The critical issue here is shared prosperity. You cannot accumulate all the wealth and leave us without and expect us to sit down and accept it. It wouldn't happen. We have to stand up because the resources of this country belong to the people of Guyana, and there should be some amount of equity in the distribution of the resources. And every Indo-Guyanese I meet, I say to them clearly, I have nothing against Indo-Guyanese. I have Indo-Guyanese family. I have nothing against Indo-Guyanese. But I cannot sit down and see a racist PPP government seeking to discriminate and destroy the Afro-Guyanese community. And every time that they put resources into the Guyanese, African Guyanese community, is token. Why will I sit down and allow you to carry away the hog of our resources and then come to Buxton, put $40 million in 20 bridges, which works out to $2 million per bridge, and you going on like if you help the people of Buxton. In fact, you probably put those contractors in debt because $2 million can't build any proper bridge, and it will very well turn the workers against the very people you put as contractors. The issue here is not that you are not doing a few token things in African Guyanese and indigenous community. The issue here is you are not allocating resources in a fair way that allows other ethnic groups to benefit and develop economically and become sustainable communities and persons. And that is the critical issue. And I will stand up against that all the time. On the one hand, Jack Leo says, we did nothing for, the coalition did nothing for the people. But yet in Linden, they could have taken 400 to 500 people off of Social Security. We did nothing for them. Yet you could have fired all the people from the ambulance service that were employed. Yet you could close down the nursing school and then reopen it and say you bring in people from other regions, but Linden is deprived. But look, when we start to campaign against the PPP, all of this information will be out there and we will beat them in those areas. I'm not worried about what they're doing in those communities.
Aubrey, there are some conversations around the issue of oil. There's a conversation of fighting for better contracts, fighting Exxon against the environment. there is the parallel conversation that those issues may not be as paramount as some people are making them out to be, that there should be another conversation, and that's about equal distribution of what out of the deal from Exxon. Where do you come down on those parallel discourses on oil?
I have long said that the law in Guyana devolves on us the responsibility to ensure the Guyanese people benefit from our oil and gas resources. And so I am on the side that our oil and gas resources must benefit us, and we must do what is necessary for us to benefit. Secondly, I don't see a fight with Exxon. I don't see a fight with Exxon. The contract, I think, is Article 60, has a mechanism by which we can engage Exxon to get more benefit from the contracts. And I believe it should be utilized. And as a government in power, we will engage Exxon based on that, with the aim of ensuring that whatever comes out of it, Exxon benefits from its investment, but the people of Guyana benefit from these resources. I don't like when we put it in the context of a fight. And that is the reason why I avoided the term renegotiation. Because when people started to use renegotiation, they were using it first as if without Exxon, we will make changes. My view is the law provides for us to engage Exxon and make changes. And we should use the diplomacy, the political support, the people's support, everything at our disposal to engage ExxonMobil in a civilized way so that we can benefit from the oil deal. But it has to go further than there. Why would I want us to benefit more and it is meeting the people? It is being stolen by the People's Progressive Party. It has become a slush fund for their development. So it is not just about getting more. Excuse me. Getting more is important. The question then becomes more for whom? And I'm saying that in the present configuration of this government, getting more means putting more resources in the hands of the corrupt, and those resources wouldn't meet the people. I want us to get more, but also for the people to benefit from the funds we get. And as presently constituted, this government is not disposed to put in the resources from oil and gas in to our people. They are given a few cash grants here. They know full well that by the time they deliver those cash grants, they're done. And therefore, the people in getting a sustainable life. I am talking about putting resources in a way that small businesses develop, micro businesses develop, people develop. And so you are getting a better quality of life. There is no explanation to why this uncaring PPP government could have $5 billion in the budget since January, but refuses to distribute it to public servants. And then they will come now and announce an increase and forget that there is $5 billion there that workers should have gotten. And then the president isn't talking about giving people a living wage. He isn't talking about giving people a livable income. He is talking about adjustments to the salaries. What that means is at the end of the process, the increase that they will give going to be lower than the inflation, and the people's real wage will continue to decline. People will continue to punish while the government has a happy time accumulating wealth for itself. There is one minister who has a stake in a particular company, so they're going to make money. But when it comes to the average Indo-Guyanese in Port Morant, in WIM, when it comes to the average Afro-Guyanese, the average indigenous Guyanese, the average Portuguese boy who live around, or the Chinese Guyanese, they don't have anything to get. And that is where the problem lies.
That is where the problem lies. Before we move off of oil and gas, let me ask you this. When Sir Thomas and the WPA came out in 2018 and introduced on the public agenda the question of structured cash grants coming from the oil resources, both the PPP and the APNU slash PNC wavered on the issue. I noticed both from your press conferences and from your economic advisor, Young Elson Lowe, who has been on this program, that there seems to be a clearer position on your part as to the utility of that mechanism of cash grant. Am I correct in this assessment?
Yes, but like we have said, it must be structured, it must be predictable, and it must be used in a way that it improves the quality of life of the Guyanese people. Look, let's take cash grant in schools. I have no problem with a cash grant in school. But if you just go and say, look, a parent's 5,000, you 10,000, etc., it wouldn't impact the child's education. For instance, I believe you can give cash grant and link it to the attendance of school, at school, so that you don't just give a cash grant because a person has a child in school, but because that person is parenting the child and the child is going to school, it is being used for the child to go to school. Then for me, that cash grant will become meaningful. But if I give you a cash grant of $20,000, just to use a figure, and you go and do your nails, how has that impacted the child? And so for me, it must be structured. They must have clear objectives. And it must be done in a way that it is transparent. The cash grant by the government, they start by saying we will give it to households. As they operated in PPP communities, they give it to households. But when they arrive in other communities, they start to ask for proof of ownership of the property. Again, blatant discrimination. And so our position is clear on cash grants. Our people need resources. They must have resources. It must not create dependency. It must be structured, organized, predictable, and done in a way that our people can develop. You said you're given resources for building homes, so much steel, etc. But when you look at what the government is doing, it is structured to put the money in the hands of the cronies in those businesses rather than helping the people in Guyana. Somebody from the Rupununi called to say, if finally having announced all of this, then trying to tell the people they got to go through the bank, they got to do this, etc., knowing full well that many of them don't have the capacity. They are not involved in that kind of organized business activity. And so the promise turned out to be useless because the mechanisms for it to be delivered are as such that the people who the grants are intended for can't access them. So we have a position on cash grants, and it must not become a corruption slush fund.
It must not become a corruption
slush fund. We got people moving
Yes.
around with bags of money that are PPP activists. You go with your ID card. I mean, look, I am a pensioner. I'm 65, so I start getting pension this year. There is a 28,000 that you get as your pension. And the president promises a one-off cash grant. I went and collect my own to donate to somebody. You know what I found? I signed for it. The paper, the envelope doesn't have a name that says Aubrey Norton. It says 28 Ks and a stamp. Now, what happens after you would have distributed and a number of people didn't collect? Now, clearly you were creating a slush fund because all you had to do was produce another voucher. As a pensioner, you get a voucher October and you can go and cash it. Why is it you couldn't produce another voucher that says pension cash grant, and it goes just like how you get your pension book and everybody go and cash it at the post office or where you have to cash it? Why is it PPP activists got to be around in buses and in vehicles and at places distributing this cash grant? It is done in that way so that the corruption can continue and intensify. And that is the problem I have with your approach.
Aubrey Norton.
I visited Corriverton, and most of the people who complain, and many of them are PPP supporters, they complain that you came saying you're giving a cash grant to fisher folks, but more taxi men got the money than them. That is what we're facing.
Aubrey Norton here, one-on-one on Politics 101. Aubrey, there's this commission of inquiry into the 2020 elections. What is your party, your coalition attitude to that? Are you going to participate? Are you encouraging your people to go give evidence before that commission? Should your supporters treat the commission as just another ploy by the people?
If they were serious about a commission of inquiry, they would have inquired into the entire elections and not just Region 4. The fact that they are focusing it on Region 4, you know that they want a particular narrative. They don't want us to hear what happened in Region 1 where there were no documentation. They don't want us to hear about all the other areas of irregularity. It is just Region 4. My own view is that they have no case against the people they charge. And what they're trying to do is to create an environment that says, yes, there was illegality in the election solely on one side so that they can carry away the PR points from it, because they know they cannot win in a court of law once the court is impartial. Now, we have said to some lawyers they should monitor it and that there are times that there are need for comments. But as a party, we are not participating because we believe that it is the election petition that should be the main mechanism by which you determine whether an election was free, fair, or it had fraud. And we know in this case from the recount that there was serious fraud.
We know from the recount that there was serious fraud. Aubrey, in the absence of polling in Guyana, one does not have a sense of what people are thinking in terms of their preferences, in terms of the performance of political parties. In the absence of polling, how do you get a sense of people in the country are evaluating your own leadership and the work that your party and coalition are doing?
We are engaging a group to do some more empirical data. And I know that some polling was done. I know the PPP is annoyed that the information came out and that information showed that the PPP is in deep trouble. But we will have some polling done. Recently, we had some focus group targeting, which brought out some information. And we are in the process of engaging a group that will do a lot of that work for us.
Aubrey Norton there speaking about polling. Aubrey, take the next couple of minutes and speak directly
Oh,
to your
uh,
support. We're
go ahead.
going. That's what I'm saying. Take the next couple of minutes and speak directly to your support base as we close out.
Speak to the first what?
To your support base, a lot of whom are live here on this program, and a lot of whom will be viewing the program after it closes this evening.
All I would say to our support base is look, one, be involved in your community, help educate our supporters in the community, explain to them that the PPP has no interest in them. All they are doing is seeking to control and dominate, and that they are seeking to give you the crumbs while they carry away the hog or the bread to make it congruent. That's the first thing I would say to you. The second thing I would say to you is that engage our young people. Many of them can be misled because they don't have the information at their disposal. We need to engage them. I will also say to you, educate them, raise their consciousness, work with them. And I want to make the point that many of you in our communities are leaders. You might not want to be openly in politics, but you can also help by doing quiet work on the ground. That will be my major message. And to say to our support base, there is hope. The tides are turning against the People's Progressive Party. In fact, many of them have already turned. And it is now dependent on our organization and political work. And that will ensure we succeed against the People's Progressive Party. What the PPP is doing, what the PPP is doing is that Irfan Ali goes around with a lot of people that he work with, and they go into African Guyanese community and put up as if they went there and they had overwhelming support. If they had 10 people from Denhamstel, they had plenty. But the picture, you will see a lot of people because they work with the people. The other thing they're doing is that they are forcing the people who they give this $40,000 to go to those activities. They did that in Belladrum. And so don't be carried away by their propaganda, their PR. Let us do our work with our people. I want to say to the Indo-Guyanese community, continue your quiet support. We will work with you. We understand the fear that they instill. Today I raised with the members of the church where we have an activist in Kanji. They pelt the woman's house. They do her all kinds of things. And then they come to tell you about one Guyana. Let us be clear. This government is not building one Guyana. They are building a number of Guyanas. But the key one for them is their friends, their family, the favorites, the cronies, accumulating all our wealth while the mass of our people are suffering. The message must be that Guyana has gotten worse under the People's Progressive Party and that we can only progress if there is change. And change there will be.
Change gotta come, invoking Sam Cooke. Those of us who are old timers, we remember Sam Cooke as one of the great R&B singers, but he was political as they all were during time. Change gonna come someday. My brother Aubrey, it's always a pleasure having you on.
Always nice
you're
to speak with you.
Right,
Always
you're
nice
frank as ever. Wonderful.
Yeah. Thanks.
Good night.
Good evening.
And tomorrow there is that
Have
notice
a
in
good
front
evening.
of. Thank you very much. Thank you. And tomorrow there is that protest in front of the Ministry of Finance, organized by Politics 101 and Bostonian Morning Time. Please, if you're in the vicinity, please go out and lend the solidarity to that exercise, that demonstration against the high cost of living, against economic injustice, against economic inequality. 12 o'clock tomorrow, 12 midday, in front of the Ministry of Finance. That demonstration tomorrow, spearheaded by Brother Kadaki, sponsored, supported by Politics 101 and Bostonian Morning Time. So it's non-partisan. So we welcome people from all political parties, all ethnic groups, all social classes to go out and register your protest. Thank you all very much, and I will see you guys tomorrow. And remember, I love you.